So here we are talking about usability. So web usability is the ease of use of a website. So some broad goals of usability are the presentation of information and choices in a clear and concise way, a lack of ambiguity, and the placement of important items in appropriate areas. So for a website, usability literally determines if your website will be successful or not. If your site is difficult to use, someone's going to just bail. If your homepage doesn't tell you a user, or it doesn't tell a user what your company is about or what you can do for them, they're just going to, whoopsies, they're just going to bail. If they get lost on your site, if the text is hard to read, if the navigation is inconsistent, they will absolutely bail. So in a nutshell, I'm sure we've all experienced that. If you go to shop in one store's website, and if you're like, I can't figure out how much the shipping is, or I absolutely cannot figure out where their pens are. You're like, screw this, I'm going to go shop at this other website because I know I can just go into the pen section and grab one. So accessibility and usability, so important these days. So there are many other websites available in your category, and a user will bail on yours knowing this if you don't make your website easy to use. Often websites are designed with a focus on fancy features and flashy interfaces. These approaches to site design forget about the most important part of the process, which is you or the people, your clients, or the clients of your client are the user. Way back when I was in school, and websites back in the day, like Flash and things going crazy on your screen, and anything that was like wild and looked cool, like that was like, oh yeah, now those guys have a great website. That is most definitely not the case anymore. Making sure that accessibility is number one is huge. So making sure that people can read your text. Accessibility is, they have the ability to turn on accessibility if they need to. Your headlines are defined, your buttons are defined, nothing's, moving and going crazy. Live text is a big thing. So instead of having text in an image, which used to be a big thing, now we have live text. So this way, if you have accessibility turned on, that live text can be read back to you, versus if it's in an image, it won't be. So you could lose people. Make sure that something works well, that a person of average or even below average ability and experience can use the thing for its intended purpose without getting hopelessly frustrated. So always thinking about the lowest common denominator or person of average ability that would go to your website. If you don't think that person, or like that quote said, someone below can navigate, then you're not doing your job. So usability professional association, so the approach that incorporates direct user feedback throughout the development cycle in order to reduce costs and create products and tools that meet the user's needs. Just a quick little graphic here. So we've got a big portion of user experience, essentially takes into account of all of the things, which is typography, making sure there's contrast, your visual design, making sure the colors are appropriate, your information architecture, which is your sitemap, is our pages placed in a really awkward, silly way that aren't for the common person, the common mind, or really kind of make sense. First law of usability, don't make me think. You don't want people to have to think about where to go. You just want them to go, oh, I need this, add to cart essentially maybe, and then go. So some major components of usability. Learnability, so how easy it is for users to accomplish basic tasks the first time they encounter the design. The efficiency, once users have learned the design, how quickly can they perform tasks? Memorability, when users return to the design after they're not using it, how easily can they reestablish proficiency? Errors, how many errors do users make? How severe are the errors? Can they recover from them, etc.? And then satisfaction, how pleasant is it to use that design? So the importance of the usability, it's an absolute necessity. Like I said, I'll probably use the term usability and accessibility over and over and over again. So poor usability results in frustrated users. They're going to leave. They're not going to be a repeat visitor. Big thing, support costs. So if your website doesn't function very well, that means you're probably going to need a customer service team, which now you're paying those guys more instead of paying the professionals more to make sure that website functions perfectly. So aspects of design to consider for usability. So obviously that navigation, is it easy to use and understand, consistent all the pages? We don't want to have buttons or navigation here. And then when you go to your other pages, maybe your buttons like move. Sometimes your navigation will move. That's a bit of a cloudy area from the home page to your internal pages. But once you say get into your internal pages, they should still stay in the same spot. Multimedia content, like I said, with Flash way back when, isn't unnecessary. Does the multimedia aid in the comprehension of the product? Are there subtitles? Textual content, are the font sizes appropriate? Written in a language a user of the site will understand. Is there too much text? Not enough text. Interaction, are the interactive elements necessary? Are they easy to use? Or are they easy to understand? What do they do? And then one of the big ones for me is accessibility. Can the site be used by anyone? Font sizes, contrast, alt images, etc. Whoopsie, so the key benefits here, increased productivity, decreased training and support costs, more sales, less maintenance, etc. And then how can we improve? This is really essentially the number one, a user-centered approach. So when you're building a website, say if it's for a big company, you might have Mr. CEO and all of his executives wanting to take part in that. Oh, I think we should build our site like XYZ, but they're not going to the site. Maybe it's for, a kid's clothing shop and you're like, you guys don't have any idea. Maybe you should talk to parents, talk to kids, talk to this. So user-centered is the biggest element. So identify who your user could potentially be. So who's going there? Is it the Walmart website? Is it, the kids' clothes website? What are they trying to do on the site? Then we create these personas. Again, we'll dip into that next week. We create our prototypes. We'll get into that later. And then there's different usability guidelines for your country. So making sure that North America has fairly good guidelines now. They protect people that need that extra accessibility. So, and essentially now if your site is not accessible, it's not going to show up in Google. So make sure you got that. And then testing. So our testing measures the quality of our users' experience when we're interacting with that web product, how well users can learn and use the product to achieve their goals, and how satisfied users are with that process. Were they happy with how they added something to the cart, or did they find it confusing? So the goals of the testing is to determine if the product is ready to launch. So for the most part, this testing comes prior to development or prior actually to UI. So you'll test your wireframe, and then you're going to test your comps, which is after you've added your colors. So we're in the UI stage of things. And then you test again once you get to development. So we help identify problem areas or issues that need to be addressed. You get an overall sense of how good or bad things are. Oh, my headphones are dying. See if things are getting better across iterations. And then we help convince management or others of the need to fix things. So sometimes a company will hire company that say has a poorly functioning website. They will hire another company that specializes in UX and UI to do the testing, figure out what's wrong with it, and then you can go back and say, I can literally see that no one knows how to, I keep using the same example, how to add something to the cart. So that is a big problem. And that's where you're going to convince the management to hire you and to let you redesign their website. So the planning we need to do, so we create our tasks. I'm going to get into this once we go through our assignment. We select our participants, we conduct the test, analyze, and then we have our recommendations. So we have our task list. So make sure or create a list of tasks or questions that our typical users should be able to complete in an hour or under an hour, depending how big or how many tasks you have. They shouldn't be too simple or too difficult. So making sure, I'm not going to bother reading through the examples. You guys can look through those yourselves, but you just don't want them to be, just like anything, too complicated or too simple where people don't understand. You want to make sure when they're doing the testing that you tell them where to click and what to do. So if you have a task, one task, for instance, would be go to the Apple website, find the iPhone 10. I don't know what iPhone we're at right now, the iPhone 10 in purple, add it to your cart. I want you to calculate the shipping to your home in Burlington. You're not going to, if someone's looking at the website and they're not sure where to start, you don't want to be essentially over their shoulder going, okay, so now you're going to go up to shop. The whole intention is for them to do it on their own to see how they're doing it. So it's definitely an unbiased process. Obviously, like that, like I just said, if you lead them too much, it's going to be too much, or you're going to give up too much information. Have the correct solution. So if you ask a user to find a rental car location nearest to a hotel address, there should obviously be a correct choice. So don't give them a task that's impossible. And then this makes the task more straightforward for the user. It allows you to more easily know if a task was or wasn't successful. Make the task realistic. So browse product offerings and purchase an item. That would be the goal. So you wouldn't want to tell them to purchase a pair of running shoes. You want to make sure that you get a little more in depth, like I was saying with the iPhone. Give them all the specifics. Say, for instance, you want to find a movie in Showtime. So you're doing some usability testing on Cineplex. Again, there's a poor task and a better task. I'm not going to bother reading all those. You guys can use those when you're working on your assignment. Avoid giving them actual clues and describing the steps. So again, you just want to give them the task and the task only. One of the biggest things is recording your observations. So what you see from them. So did they complete it? Did you see them like squish their face up a lot? How long did it take them to actually get to that? Any stumbling blocks? Did they huff and puff through the process? You could potentially post a post-test usability survey. And then you could do a post-survey questions. Have you ever visited the site before? What do you think the purpose is? Who is the audience, etc. And then we analyze. So we take all that information we've just gathered and we provide a recommendation. So if someone says they can't read the navigation because it's red text on a black background, then your recommendation would be change the color. We're not going to bother doing this because I feel like I've already talked a lot today and you guys might have full brains. Whew. How are we feeling? Did I kind of lose you? It's a lot to kind of just sit and listen to, and especially if this is the first time you're hearing this content, you're like, what is she talking about? So as we get into things, don't worry, it's going to become more clear.